Oxford study, number one, does not exist as folks sort of claim it does. It originated from April 2023 when a TikTok user commented and made this joke around the power of the Caucasian man over the Asian woman subconsciously needs to be studied by the Oxford University. And that comment sort of blew up, and folks thought, oh, there must be an Oxford study that talks about how Asian women subconsciously prefer white men, and there is not one. Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Welcome back to Big Asian Energy. And today's a topic I think is a really interesting one, because every single time I talk about this topic, it invariably kind of blows up and gets a lot of people who are either really supportive or really mad, and never clear what people are mad about. So there's just a lot that we can go into it. But I think it's such a ripe topic because in 2026, I think that relationships, sexuality, dynamics, etc., is probably one of the biggest things that's on our minds, short of AI, because human relationships are becoming more and more, I think, significant right now. And so today I invited back our resident, incredible psychologist, sexuality and relationships expert, Dr. Stacy Litam, to jam on the topic of interracial relationships, specifically around Asian American and often white American dynamics. Because I think that there's a different layer to that than just Asian generic interracial relationships. So welcome back to the show. Stacy, how's it going?
Everything is good. I'm excited to dive into this topic with you. I know this is one that you and I had been really excited about getting into. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So let's start from the topic of why is this topic so ripe? I mean, I think compared to all the other Asian American topics, I feel like interracial dynamics is one that comes up so often with Asians around the world with the Asian diaspora community. Why do you think that is?
I think this is really ripe for conversation, and why folks have such a hard time with this, because it ends up pulling on a lot of different internalized biases that folks don't realize they carry. So you have the hypersexualization of Asian women, you have the demasculinization of Asian men, and you have elements of misogyny and social positioning that end up infusing these beliefs about who folks are supposed to end up with and why. So it pulls on our underlying biases, and it comes out in ways that folks don't even realize.
Yeah, 100%. I think that this is a question I feel that is particularly rich because there is a lot of history that is linked to this, especially around colonialism, media, perceptions, public perceptions of how we are. And there's been various studies that have given various pieces of information about how Asian men and women show up on the dating market. And more importantly, how does our race, culture, ethnicity play a role in it? And what seems to be more common for one gender of the Asian diaspora community is almost the exact opposite for the others, but not in a better way. And what I mean by that is that, there's a history where Asian women are oftentimes overly sexualized, fetishized, and again, dehumanized because we just look at as in Asian women are often portrayed as being more submissive or cute or easygoing, traditional gender roles or whatever terms that people come up with. Whereas Asian men are often portrayed as being emasculated or, seeming more shy or nerdy or less sexually desirable by that same context. So let's just start with that, which is, have you ever personally experienced this in any way? Or what has your experience been like around this?
So yes, I have personally experienced specific comments about my partner, who is a white man. And I will get one of three comments typically. The first one is, good catch. The other one is, you're muddying up the bloodline. Why would you dare have children with someone when you could have children with someone like us, right? Another Asian person. So this sort of eugenics component.
Yeah.
And then
how dare you not keep our bloodlines pure?
Yeah. The third one is a little trickier and much more harmful, I think. And it's the one that says, you're colonized. It's the one that says that you are white proximity seeking because you've chosen a white partner.
Mm-hmm.
You have internalized racism around your own community because you've selected someone outside of your race or ethnicity. And it's this element that I have fallen prey to white supremacy. And it's all those things together while being layered by the fact that I am Chinai, so Chinese Filipina, and my community already has a history of colonization, that those things really come together and play in really harmful and unique ways.
Yeah. And like, I think this is something that's been particular because you are also a massive advocate. I think one of the top voices for Asian Americans, especially as an expert in sexuality and relationships. I know that you're going to kind of like let that comment kind of pass by because you don't want to acknowledge that, but it's true. So I think that certainly puts you on a spotlight in particular, because no matter how much work that you really do as an advocate for Asian Americans, this, I feel like, is something that always comes back. Like there's always going to be people who will watch your content, and if your husband is in it, will automatically come out and give that immediate, almost like a reactionary stat of like, or mentioning of, what is it, the Oxford study as a comment, right? So let's jump into that. Like, I feel like we should address that because I feel really bad for Asian women, honestly, who are in relationships with white men right now, as somebody who's also in an interracial relationship. So how does it feel when you see those messages?
When I see messages around, Oxford study, for me, I'm sort of met with compassion because
actually, let's explain this term because a lot of people might not be aware of it. So if you go to the comment section of almost any post featuring an Asian woman and a white man, somewhere on the messaging, you're going to see the words Oxford study. And I had to have somebody explain this to me. So can you explain why people post Oxford study and what the heck it actually is?
Yes. So this is such a good question. The Oxford study, number one, does not exist as folks sort of claim it does. Okay. It originated from April 2023 when a TikTok user commented and made this joke around the power of the Caucasian man over the Asian woman subconsciously needs to be studied by the Oxford University. And that comment sort of blew up and folks thought, there must be an Oxford study that talks about how Asian women subconsciously prefer white men. And there is not one. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There is a 2010 study in Oxford University literature that is titled New Susie Wong, Normative Assumptions of White Male and Asian Female Relationships in its collection, but it's not about romantic relationships. It's not about sexual ones. It's about advertisement and how media informs and impacts relationship perception. So there is no real Oxford study, and it becomes this example where predominantly Asian men are denigrating Asian women for dating outside of our race.
Yeah. And I feel like there is this feeling I get when I read comments like this. When I read comments, actually, any time that this discussion is on there, and it's everywhere online, Reddit, TikTok, wherever it is that people are, I often find that three comments will show up. One is there's Asian men who are hurt, who feel hurt. That's all I'll say. I don't want to use that sort of the anger or anything like that or resentful but behind it, there's this sense of there has been an imbalance in the dating pool where Asian men are not seen as attractive. And now I actually dug into this because I feel like, one, this has changed quite dramatically in the past few years. I had gotten really curious about this. And as a matter of fact, I think that the real more updated studies that we are seeing is that we are actually seeing more Asian men now in interracial relationships than Asian women. That seems to be the trend. There's a couple of different studies about it, but in earlier studies that we found. So, for example, there was a Pew study that was done in 2010 where there was that gap. 36% of Asian women versus 17% of Asian men were in interracial marriages. But I'm curious as to, in your experience, has the responses from the public changed? We know now that there are more Asian men being seen as sexually desirable. Has Asian men come to realize this?
I don't know. Because the thing about confirmation bias is if an Asian man feels hurt and they want to stay in that stuckness of being hurt, then it doesn't matter what evidence they're going to find in the media, they're going to twist it in a way that's going to confirm their bias, that we are undesirable and we're deserving of our pain. So it is interesting because though Asian men are beginning to be seen as more desirable, more sexual, more attractive, more desirable partners, depending on where the person is in their own sort of stage of awareness, they might not recognize that and they might just feel stuck in their hurt.
I like that. So, so what is underneath this? Like, yes, there's the actual topic that we can address it, but in your experience as a psychologist, what do you think is really underneath this particular conflict or discussion that is happening?
So, though this is likely different for everyone,
of course,
I would be curious about.
This is just our own perceptions, our guesswork. This is not based on any like generalized. This is fact. We're just talking feelings here.
It would be an internalized sense of low self-worth. That could be layered by internalized racism. That could be layered by misogyny. That could be layered by past experiences. And all those things together uniquely weave this idea, this perspective, this belief that people like me are not desirable. People who look like me are not deemed attractive. And that pain and that script they tell themselves can become really pervasive and deeply held.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of tackle that phrase that we're looking at as in what is the underlying, because I think that the experiences, I'll speak for myself personally. I think that if I was growing up now, I would have a very different view of how Asian men are seen compared to the version that I saw when I was growing up in North America, right? So I am, I grew up consuming media from the 90s. And back then, there was not a lot of examples of sexy Asian men. I'm just going to put it that way. Like, whatever that word means, there just weren't a lot of traditional, as in like, protagonist, heroic characters in Asian men who were in romantic dynamics, either with other Asian women or there just wasn't a lot of media like in Hollywood. There weren't a lot. Like, I think Crazy Rich Asians was one, like the first real one.
And now you've got me thinking about something interesting, because the examples that I can think of now where there were Asian men who were in a romantic relationship or were viable dating candidates, they were almost existing where they had this hyper masculine feature. So Bruce Lee or in Mortal Kombat, you have this hyper masculine component that almost evens out that Asian identifying man.
True. Totally. Yeah. We were the martial artists, right? There were the Jet Lis, the Jackie Chans, the Bruce Lees. That was how we were allowed to exist. We could either be like this exotic, martial artist, very like, what's that? The Karate Kid style kind of thing, like Mr. Miyagi or something like that. But on a romantic sexualized lens, I feel like that wasn't as common.
It wasn't.
Right? Like, did Bruce Lee ever have a romantic interest?
None that come to mind.
I'm trying to think of my favorite Bruce Lee movies and TV shows. And yeah, I don't think that I can name any of them. So anywho, so like that perception coming out of that felt to me like I was on an unfair playing field, right? Like trying to ask out a white girl at my school felt like I was breaking two lines. The first line, which is what everyone experiences, which is like, that moment you're at like the dance and you're crossing from the 8th grade dance or the middle school dance, high school dance, when you're crossing the threshold for all the boys are on one side and all the girls on the other side, and you have to cross the gym to go and ask someone out. Like that line of crossing the gender chasm felt like it was even smaller than crossing the racial chasm, which is the line where you go all the way to the white people group to ask out a girl. So there's already a difference in how I experience that. And then coming to see, like it does seem like from my experience, I see a lot of Asian women with white dudes. And of course, there's going to be this internalized, like, is it me? Is it just like, if I'm not seeing it anywhere, why is that the case? Has that been an experience you've had while you were growing up?
So what's interesting is that Filipino women compared to other Asian women do tend to prefer white men. There is a longer history here. And I think that it's linked to colonization. I think it's linked to accessibility. I think it's linked to perhaps some white proximity seeking tendencies. But I don't think that's true for everyone. So you have cultural components, right? Where Filipinos, like with those with a colonized mindset, do believe that white folks are our saviors. So of course we're going to partner with them. But that's not true for everyone. There is far more intra-group differences than intergroup differences. So there's way more values, behavior, trait differences among Asians and among specific groups of Asians compared to Asian and white. So you'll find great guys everywhere. You're also going to find jerks in every category.
Right. Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I will tell you though, as an Asian woman growing up in the Midwest, predominantly Cleveland, there weren't a lot of other Asian partners that I had to choose from. So part of it was just the nature of the beast, what was available and who was really kind.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know that Big Asian Energy is officially out, and you can go and pick it up anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, etc. If you've ever felt like there's something stopping you from reaching your full potential, if you've ever felt like you want to have that unstoppable charisma and confidence in the work that you do, as well as just the way you show up in life, this might be the book for you. It is a book that is jam-packed with research studies, advice, case studies, stories, and of course, so many different techniques and takeaways, including communication, as well as mindset, as well as confidence, and all the other topics out there. It just won one of the best books of 2025 on Amazon. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go take a look. And finally, if you have a few seconds, can I also ask you to leave a quick review for Big Asian Energy? It not only means the world to us to hear from you, but more importantly, it does absolutely help us in reaching more audiences. I hope you're having an amazing day, and thanks again. So a question that I feel like many Asian women, I don't know, I'm assuming, I'm not an Asian woman, but I'm assuming that at least some Asian women must have is, I'm in a relationship with a white guy. Am I struggling with internal racism? Or a white partner going, hey, my partner is an Asian person. At what point do I know if I am just perpetuating the stereotype? And do I have a fetish, or do I just have a preference? Because I feel like that's always the question that comes up of like, it's just a preference versus it's a fetish.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. I need a moment to think about this.
We could cut all the pauses. Don't worry.
Because I don't.
Did you ever have that question? Like, did you ever look at yourself and going like, is this internalized racism happening, or?
Absolutely. I think I'm thinking about both of your questions at the same time. The first one around fetishism versus preferences. Yeah. I think that requires a deeper reflection on, where does this come from? Where did I learn this? Where did I first feel attracted to this group, this type of person? And is it the person that I'm attracted to, or the culture, or what I perceive the culture to be? So I know when I was dating and I was swiping right on a dating app, if I saw any man wearing a kimono or with, martial art stuff or any like Asian tattoos, like I'm immediately not interested, because that to me is this glamorization of Asian culture in a way that feels like a broad sweeping interest, but without getting to know the person. So that for me is always a hard pass. Someone
as an Asian person with Asian,
as an Asian woman looking for a potential partner, if any,
if a white partner has like Asian, like the the swords or whatever it is, those like cliches, etc. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
so you're not talking about Asian men who has Asian tattoos because they might just have tattoos. Okay.
I feel like I'm doing a bad job today. I'm so sorry.
No, I just want to clarify because it's an interesting distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, but your question around this. Do I have this unaddressed internalized racism? Yeah, that's a question that I absolutely dealt with and overcame. And, for me, as someone who sort of found my ethnic identity and really grounded myself in that a little bit later in life, it was something that took a little bit longer to make sense of. And what I have come to find is that compassion always is the way to go. And I've dated many different races, many different ethnicities. And by and large, my partner happens to be white. And he also happens to be the most incredible, supportive partner, the most loving person who anticipates my needs. I mean, I wrote a book about how healing this man has been for me. And so regardless of race or ethnicity, this man as a person is someone who holds me in a way that I've never been held or seen before. So I think that it's easy to attribute qualities of a partner to race or ethnicity, but I think that's really unfair because we love who we love. And though there are certainly layers of culture and race and ethnicity that are part of that, the other component here that I really value my partner is he really takes time and holds space to make sure that my culture, my language, and what's important to me is also honored and centered and celebrated. So what we'll often find is in interracial partners, sometimes there's a sort of conflict around how much Asian can I be? How Asian can I really be? And how much do I have to pull back to make sure my white partner is comfortable? And in really securely attached dynamics, we don't have to hold back because we can exist in our wholeness and our partner holds us anyway. And the beauty is that can exist across all relationships, not just Asian white, but Asian black, white. I mean, all the different kinds of relationships dynamics.
Absolutely. And I've met your partner before when I was in New York, and he's an incredible guy, loved his attitude, and definitely did not strike me as somebody who fits into that. So I think this is why it's such an interesting topic, because in some ways what we're experiencing is a form of racism in the sense that, like, when we see people commenting like Oxford study on somebody's page because they're in a relationship, because the racism is due to your race and your actions, I'm going to flatten you two-dimensionally to what I think you're going under, which is internal racism, which ironically is by definition racism. So it's an interesting topic also because I've also had the same question. I'm in a partnership, my marriage, with somebody who's Caucasian, and I had to kind of check in with myself when we first started dating. I was like, does that dynamic play a role in my choice? Because it's inevitable. And I think that's something that is so difficult, is that there is no black and white way to talk about how power relationships play in a society when we are part of the society, right? Like, there's always going to be an unconscious view of like, oh, okay, you have certain social standing and social power, and therefore that might be unconsciously filtered in through the grand calculus of what we find attractive or not. Or are there certain cultural traits? So I think that this is a really difficult thing to talk about, but for God's sake, let's just retire the Oxford study comment once and for all.
Please.
Has this conversation ever been brought up with your partner?
Has this conversation ever been brought up with my partner? No. And the reason why is because I don't think it's his burden to hold. Now, I have talked about this with other Asian identifying people, friends, colleagues, confidants, and I think there's a certain knowing and understanding that exists among Asian identifying people that we know what that means when we say, is this my own internalized racism, is unresolved trauma? Like, what is this in my partner selection, and how do I feel about that? And I think that taking that to folks who can viscerally appreciate what that feels like in your body has for me been more helpful than addressing it with my partner, which could really cause a lot of harm. Because what I could be potentially communicating to my partner if I brought this to him could be that I doubt our connection, that I doubt my commitment to you, that I doubt that why I chose you was really in good faith. And so, when people say, you should tell your partner everything, I think that it's really important to have nuance, because there are some things that are really complex that it would be unfair or really challenging for our partners to hold, because that's our work. It's not their work. They can hold our hands through it, but it's not their burden to carry.
So for our female listeners who might be in a relationship or, regardless of who they are, how would you walk them through the question of, if I'm choosing a partner or I'm in a partnership with somebody from a different race, how do I handle or navigate? Do they see me as me? Do they pick people, their past exes are all Asian. What does that say about them? What does that say about me? How would you guide them through that internal dialogue if it doesn't have to exist in the relationship, as you said?
Yeah. So I always ground folks to focus on their own reflection and self-awareness and not to worry so much about their partner. But there's some really helpful reflections that I think people could consider. The first of which is, how do I feel about my partner selection? So deep down, what comes up for me when I think about this partner? What do I deem as attractive? Where did I learn that? How do I feel about what I've learned, and is it working for me? So a lot of times people don't realize that what is sexually relevant is conditioned. So the only things that we learn to attribute to sexuality and attraction are things that we've learned and have been conditioned often since adolescence or childhood. So I want to be curious about, who did we learn, or who were we conditioned or socialized to perceive as attractive? And if you're an Asian identifying person growing up in the 80s and 90s and early aughts, most of the love interests in movies and books were white. So a lot of us were conditioned to perceive white folks as more attractive, more viable partners. And it's not necessarily because they're better, but it's because those were the types of people that were conditioned to see as partners.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the doll test, right? From, I think it was like the 1950s, where I think it was one of the courts gave Black children dolls to play with, and found that after they were exposed to television shows for a while, Black children will prefer to play with white dolls because of that conditioning that takes place. Okay. So we could check in with ourselves to ask, did conditioning play a role here? Do I have a self-filtering system when it comes to people of different races, people of my own race? And ask, is that coming from this? Am I allowing that perception to actually end up causing me to choose a partner who's less right for me? Maybe not as compatible, because that perception and conditioning of like maybe white adjacency or power dynamics can play a role. Okay.
Oh, I have another question that comes up.
Yeah.
So in cases like this, another reflection that I'm curious about is, who do I get to be because I'm with them?
Tell me more.
So if
I love this question, by the way. I have an idea of where you're going with this, but I want you to say it.
So if we ask ourselves, who do we get to be because I'm with them? It's very different if someone says, I get to be my whole self in my authentic being, and I get to show up in a way that feels true for me because I'm with them. Or you might have someone who says, because I'm with them, I am treated with more respect. I get access to more resources. People see me as someone who's more intelligent or successful. So who do I get to be because I'm with them can point to any underlying biases that exist and might have influenced our partner selection.
And like really checking in on that perception. The question that came up for me when you were mentioning that might be an addendum would be, how do I want to be viewed as a couple? When I think about that, it's like, if I'm in a relationship, and I think that this is probably pretty common, like, how will my friends view my relationship? Will they see me differently than if I was in a relationship with someone else? So if I'm dating a white person, will they view me differently than if I was dating an Asian person?
I guess the question is, are your friends mostly Asian or are your friends mostly white?
Yes, that's also a good question. Who are my friends that I place so much value in? I'm speaking hypothetically, of course, by this point. If I'm not talking about this hypothetically, my wife is going to have some real problems. But what we're talking
Amy,
about
exactly.
yeah, exactly. Amy, I love you. What we're talking about essentially is the anticipation of how we're viewed. Because, and I'll be, again, fully honest here, like when I was dating and eventually married my partner, I did wonder, I'm like, how do I have this conversation with my parents? That comes up. How does this affect my relationship with my current friend group? And I think this is a particular case for Asian people who have a tight-knit Asian group of friends, because there's an unspoken cultural shorthand that exists with anyone new you bring into the relationship, that they will understand how the social dynamics play out.
Yeah.
Whereas a white person might not. And
Right.
I think all these questions do play a role.
Absolutely, they do. They'd have to.
So how do you know? Okay, that's question one. Second question, how do you know if your partner has an Asian fetish and is just dating you to have that Asian fetish play out?
You know,
I love the facial expression change that just happened just now. There's an immediate like, oh, I've been down this road before.
mm-hmm. So my entire college, I didn't get cute until college. So my entire college dating experience was just an exploration of how many ways could I be fetishized. And I found it in the nicknames I received. So I had this one partner who referred to me as his China doll and would introduce me to his friends as, this is my little China doll.
Oh my God, excuse me while I go and throw up.
Visceral, right? It's like so upsetting.
Wow, I felt that. Oh,
I had another one who introduced me as his Filipina. Like, this is my little Filipina. She's so small and cute. So there's the pet names that play on my Asian identity.
Yeah.
There's the expectations of what I want to do with my time. And beyond anticipating my needs and trying to be culturally responsive. So it's wanting to get sushi or hibachi or pho every time we go out, or wanting to show me their nunchucks or throwing stars. I'm so serious, John. Like, this is the type of Asian woman.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a whole production around like showing me their things or collections of Asian goods. And
oh my gosh, is there a big speech about the time that they travel to Asia or Japan and really fall in love with anime? Okay, gosh, of course,
yeah. There's the falling in love with anime. There's the randomly dropping in bits of another Asian language to show me how cool they are.
Yeah.
So my entire college experience was sort of this this diverse menu of fetishization, and I got really good at figuring out who was interested in me and who was sort of projecting me and typecasting me as someone that they wanted and hoped that I would become.
Right. So we're looking for clues in which our actual individuality are being hidden away, as opposed to how we're viewed. Because by definition, any type of fetishization is a form of othering, right? Like, even in the positive sense, like I have guy friends now who are like, I have loved K-pop because they're getting more attention now from partners. And I'm actually getting a question of like, is this an issue? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it, but is this an issue? And I think that it comes down to like, yes, some of us are experiencing fetishization for the first time. We'll quickly find that, yes, the attention is pleasant, but it's never really about us. It's about who we're representing, right? Okay. Do you want to play some tough question lightning rounds?
Ooh.
I have a list of tough questions here. So there's no right or wrong answer for this, just whatever comes through.
Okay, let the trauma begin. Let's
go. Is it wrong to prefer white partners, or is it just being honest?
Shit. Dang, is it wrong to prefer white partners?
If we're just being honest.
God, that's so tricky because that almost goes into values. Is it wrong?
I'll give my answer first. Yeah? Okay.
Ask me again.
Is it wrong to prefer white partners if it's just coming from an honest place? Like, I just have a preference for white people.
I don't think it's wrong, but I would be curious about the extent in which social positioning impacted that honest preference.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same gut question. Incidentally, this is a list of questions that I had like searched up, like the hardest questions that people have about this. Because I was like, let's go deep, right? So my first thought was like, of course it's not wrong to have a preference, but exactly the same thing. It's like, can you imagine that person in a different race, or are you picturing the attachments of that racial identity? So in other words, if you're picturing a person, it's just like, oh yeah, I happen to like this type of person, and that type of person are usually white, then the question is, can you imagine a different race in that same personal stance? Like, is it the whiteness, or do you make assumptions about that person for culture and personality as well? And I think that's where stereotypes create a problem.
Very good.
When I hear people who say like, oh, I can't date Asian guys because it's like dating my younger brother. And I'm like, really? Like do you view everyone as a sibling in that situation, or do you presume or project an identity around them? That's my answer.
I think that is a very well thought out answer. I co-sign.
Right. Yeah. The question is basically like, should we moralize other people's love lives?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough one, but I think that it's something that does still happen, right? When we see people's relationships and we make snap judgments about them, we are moralizing their love lives and making assumptions about who they are before we get to know them. Okay. Why do you think people cling to the studies like Oxford study or memes to justify how they feel about this?
I think it's because it provides evidence and an excuse to perpetuate harmful internalized beliefs. And so it becomes confirmation bias. If I have an excuse, an evidence and a reason to hold on to my rage, then I'm gonna use that as leverage to continue this behavior.
I like that. It's a good answer. Should Asian people try to date Asian if they have not yet dated somebody who's Asian?
Let me ask you this. You might love pizza. Okay, pizza is the best thing. It's your favorite food. You've always preferred pizza.
Yeah, as long as it's not pineapple.
Oh, wait, but I love pineapple pizza.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to need a whole episode just to talk about that. We'll come back to that one.
Wait, this is a savory conversation.
Wait, is this part of the test of
this is not part of the test.
Moralization? Because I think that this is going to throw away the test. Because I think that it is wrong to have pineapple on pizza. That's a moral choice. That's a hill I'm going to die on.
Dang. Okay. Well,
pineapples they didn't have a profile in Italy. Okay. All right. That's me. I'm going to continue. Doesn't matter.
You could eat pizza forever and ever and ever because it's your favorite food. You've always preferred it. But what if someone told you, okay, but have you tried spaghetti? You might love spaghetti, but you might also not like it at all. But if you don't try it, then how do you know that pizza is the best thing ever? This is a bad analogy.
No, I like the analogy. I think it makes sense. Yeah. It's like essentially the question is, should we open ourselves up to new experiences, essentially? Yeah. Right. And I think the answer is that you don't have to. You can live your entire life having never tasted pizza.
But what a shame that would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll have a separate conversation about pineapples on pizza.
There is no conversation.
There is no conversation to be had.
Open yourself up to new experiences, John.
I have tried pineapple on pizza. I have tried it so often. I have tried it in every which way. It is just not my thing. Okay, I don't understand it.
You tried it, and I applaud you.
I tried it. There we go. I can handle it. If somebody bought me pineapple on pizza, I will have it. But it is just not my favorite preference. I feel like it needs to have that cheesiness.
You still have a cheesiness. The pineapple does not absorb the cheese. The pineapple exists.
Coming back to the topic. Please contain yourself, Dr. Stacy. Coming back to the topic, there's a trend going on right now about people finding their Chinese era, or there's like this Chinese-ification. I don't know if you've seen these, like it's all over TikTok. Like
it's predominantly white creators.
It's almost always white creators talking about how they are going into the Chinese era. What is your view on this trend happening, especially when it involves humans? As in, like, I'm going to date my Chinese person to be in my Chinese era.
My culture is not a trend. Yeah. And this sudden excitement around Chinese era and ube as a flavor for everything has been so grossly appropriated. And yeah.
Ube is going to be a 2026 flavor, isn't it? The way pistachio was.
It's fine, but a lot of it doesn't even directly benefit Filipino farmers and agricultural workers. So yeah, it's like burning sage and how that actually is really harmful for native communities because it takes away their resource for religious rituals. Yeah. So yes, my culture is not a trend. I am not in
Go get ube from proper Asian farmers.
Yeah. And though I'm glad that, you know, finding your Chinese era and being excited about Asian culture is now trending. It's very frustrating to me that white creators get to determine when Asian culture is interesting and valid, and when we've been doing this the whole time. Like I've been Asian the whole time.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate appreciation. I appreciate Asian appreciation. I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication around cultural appropriation versus appreciation. I appreciate appreciation. I just wish that it wasn't so dominated by corporate cultures that profiteer off of it without properly attributing the history and culture of its significance. That's my preference. All right, next question. Fetishes exist in sexual dynamics. People oftentimes have it in relationships. So can fetishization exist in a loving relationship?
Yes. So fetishization, just like every other sexual kink, ranges from mild to wild. And within two consenting adult partners, it could really spice things up. So I'm for it.
Okay. Does that include Asian fetishization, including race play?
With two consenting adults who understand what could be potentially excavated with that? Absolutely. Because here's the thing, right? So if you have, hypothetically speaking, let's say you have an Asian man and a white partner, and the white partner wants to fetishize the Asian man. And the Asian man has sort of done that emotional excavation of what could come up for me. How do I feel about this? That could be really liberating and really freeing and end up being healing in some ways to have that really sexualized experience, a really charged experience. And likewise for an Asian woman, if an Asian woman consents to being fetishized with a loving partner and aftercare is provided and it's non-negotiable, then maybe while she's fetishized, she gets to now take real ownership of her pleasure. And she gets to say, this is what I want. This is what I want you to do. This is what I want to experience. And it almost gives us permission to play out the desires and fantasies that we may not give ourselves permission to do otherwise. So as long as there's aftercare and we know what we're getting into, I think that fetishization could be a really helpful opportunity to play out fantasies in a contained way.
That's very powerful. Thank you for clarifying. So as long as people understand the fullness around that and that you're not only being sexualized and fetishized in that relationship dynamic, then yes, absolutely, it can exist in a healthy relationship dynamic. They're not unrelated, but they're not mutually exclusive, essentially.
Correct.
Wonderful. How do you suggest for people to navigate relationship boundaries when it comes to telling their family or friends about their racial decisions? This is a big question. It's essentially like, how do I go and tell my parents that I'm dating somebody who's not Asian?
This is tough. Because, as Asians, many of us are a collective. And so the right decision is the one that makes our parents happy and the one that maintains harmony in our groups, in our communities, in our cultures. And in situations where our communities or families would prefer an Asian partner, then bringing a white person home could be a little bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as boundaries go, we know that cutting off relationships is not linked to great mental health within our community.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this requires a deeper reflection of what are my need to haves and what are my would be nice to haves. So need to have.
Mm-hmm.
I need my parents to respect my partner.
Mm-hmm.
I need my parents not to make harmful comments about my partner when they're in the room. I need my parents to be open to my loving this partner. Okay. I need to have these. Nice to have. It would be nice if my parents invited us for Sunday dinner. It would be nice if my parents were excited that I was dating my partner. It would be nice if my parents did X, Y, Z, and really being mindful about what do we need to have and what do we hope to have. And sometimes being a little bit more discerning can allow us to give more compassion to our parents. And remember that this, in cases when our parents are not as affirming or supportive, that's often grounded in fear. So then I want to know, if I marry or if I date this partner who's not who you would have chosen for me, what are you afraid is going to happen? Are you afraid that I'm going to lose touch with my roots? Are you afraid that I'm going to forget all about you and you're going to end up in a nursing home because I've relinquished my cultural identity? Are you afraid that I'm going to forget where I came from? Are you going to forget, am I going to forget how to speak my language? And then you address those specific fears.
That's a beautiful framework. Thank you for sharing that. And then final question, which I'm sure is going to be relatable to not just anyone who's listening to this, but possibly myself after this, is whenever this topic comes up, the interracial dynamics and relationship, things get spicy in the comment section. How do you navigate, especially the mental health impacts of seeing that there are people who might comment critically on your relationship without having known anything about it just because of your race?
I remind myself that is not mine to hold. And I often don't engage, because engaging gives that person attention and it gives them that sort of fire to continue that rhetoric. It doesn't matter what I say. It's not what they're looking for. And so I don't respond to those comments because I protect my peace and they don't know me. So yeah, I just don't engage.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's very wise, frankly, especially. I think that's just wise for anyone who has a media presence these days, is that there's not everything you have to get engaged in. There's a lot of people who are going through stuff right now, and online happens to be a way out. I wanted to say thank you for having the courage to be so direct and honest about this. It may not feel like courage necessarily, but I can tell you right now, you're the third person, third female expert who is in an interracial relationship who I've asked and invited to have an honest and frank conversation about this. And you're the first one who would say yes. Which I think is a testament not just to your own work, but also to the current state of social media right now around this particular topic, which is a difficult one. So thank you for stepping forward and being a voice, as you always are.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's always such an honor.
As usual, you can find all of Dr. Stacy's information in our show notes. There's honestly so much more that you can check out the previous episodes. We've done several previous episodes, and they're all so good. There's so much to learn. But definitely go and check out Dr. Stacy's Instagram and her channel for all of her content on so many things, from relationships, sexuality, to what it means to, with her identity as an Asian American. She, of course, also is the author of Patterns That Remain, which is one of my favorite books about Asian American mental health. So if you haven't checked that out yet, definitely do so. And finally, as always, we always end off on a note that, we rise. When we rise together. So thank you again, Dr. Stacy, for coming on the show.
Chris, thank you.